everybody. I want to take a look at the Super Console X, which I've just received from AliExpress. I got it on a kind of really cheap deal. It was about 20 quid for everything. Basically, it was 64 gig. There are like more expensive models with more games on there and what have you, with 128 gig cards and maybe even 256. But I decided to go for the 64 gig. I mainly want this device because I really like the look of it. I kind of think if you're into playing around with Android games consoles, you know, making retro games consoles out of Android boxes, you kind of need this in your collection. There's various like kind of revisions of it. You can get Super Console X Pro, you can get Super Console X Cube, you can get an X2 now, which has got like a better processor in there. There's varying little models versions of this, and you can obviously get mini PC versions. It's kind of been the main console that everybody has kind of looked to copy or improve on, but I thought we'd take a look at it. I wanted it in my collection, so I really wanted the look of it, and I want to kind of have it, you know, in there because I really like the design of it. So let's open it up and see what you get in the box. Interestingly, mine says that it runs 70 plus emulators smoothly. I've seen other reviews where it says 80 emulators. Now I don't know if that's related to the memory size that you choose or whether it's the specs of the box, but let's take a look and see what we get in here. It's all boxed quite nicely. My box came well delivered. I didn't have any issues with it being bashed up too much or anything, so I was pretty happy with that. I got the one with two controllers. I don't know if you can get a one controller version, but basically I went for two, and I ended up with a European power supply. I'm in the UK, but I kind of had to have the European one because that was the only power supply that was on offer. It's a 12 volt power supply, 12 volt 1 amp, so that's the kind of thing you're going to get. You may be able to find versions with a UK plug, but I wasn't too bothered. You can kind of use these with UK sockets. You just need to kind of press down the earth socket and then push these in. So that's a tip if you want to use these. You can get adapters as well to do it, but they kind of do plug into 6-way plugs and stuff depending on how you do it. So yeah, not bad. So that's the power supply. So that's what you're going to get with that. Of course, you're going to get some other stuff. Get HDMI cable with it. So that's basically just a basic HDMI cable. Nothing too great there. And you get a USB hub. That's so you can plug in extra controllers to do gaming with friends or whatever you. Extra controllers to play. Whether or not there'll be many games on there that actually supports more than 2 players. But anyway, they do give you the option. It's quite cool that they've added that. So you get a USB hub, and if you don't need it for that, you could use it for other things. I expect it's a slow one though. Yeah, it's a USB 2. You can see listed on its USB 2, so it's not great if you want to use it for other things. And of course, the Super Console X itself, you get a little bit of plastic on the top here. I'm going to remove that. Mine came bubble wrapped, so it was kind of protected anyway in the box, so it's pretty good. Yeah, and this is the Super Console X model, not the X Pro. And then on the back, this is what's interesting me, because on other reviews, I've seen the model number to be X, whereas mine has the model number XL. And so therefore, I think the specs are going to be better. Because I believe this has an S905L processor in it. We'll take it apart and try and find out, but I believe it's going to have better specs. So the trouble is, you'll watch a lot of reviews on YouTube about it, and they will be valid, but they will be talking about maybe one of the earlier Super Console X consoles. Now, I'm not sure how much of a difference these processors make. But when I've watched reviews, the processor sizes were quite different. Like some had the S905M processor in there, and that was quite a small chip in comparison to the S905X, which was in the Pro. So let's have a look at this. Let's get this open in a minute, and we'll see what is inside this one. and see whether we get any kind of bigger chip than the S905M. So that'll be good if it is. And then it just means it might still be worth looking at these, even though there are sort of like better models. This is kind of the nice looking model. So, you know, I really like this console. I know really you should get an S905X4 chip. But the thing with that is they cost quite a bit more money, and you don't get the look that you get with this. So anyway, let's see what else is in the box. You get 2 controllers, you get some manuals about the controller in Chinese there. So on this side it's got English actually. So you get a manual for the controller. It's probably nothing that special, but yeah, I think they're pretty straightforward. You plug in the dongle, you turn them on, they work. Whether you need a manual or not, that's debatable. Okay, and you get a manual for the Super Console X itself, which just sort of goes through what it's got on there and what you can do and what the buttons are and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty cool. Key features and stuff. But anyway, how to get your games on there. So if you want to put additional games on the card, yeah, you got information there. I mean, I don't tend to take too much of a look at them, but there's some manual there, so it's not bad. Okay, so I've got 2 controllers. They're the kind of PlayStation knockoff controllers. Feel quite rubbery. Buttons do work on the actual analog sticks. I mean, it's a cheapy plasticky controller. It's definitely not up to the sort of grade compared to the real PlayStation controller. Buttons are quite clicky, but yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it just the shell doesn't feel 100%. I mean, it's AAA batteries as well, so if you can open the compartment at the back, and we've got a dongle in here, so you get the dongle for it. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, there's one dongle in there, and let's check the other controller to see what the other one's got. Oh, hang on. Right, so I think we've got 2 dongles, so that's really good actually, because some of these things come with 1 dongle. So yeah, we've got 2 dongles, so that means that these will work independently. And if you've got things like, I don't know, like a mini PC that you've set up to run retro games, you can probably use the controller in that as well. But yeah, the controllers don't feel terrible. There's a kind of rubberiness to the analog sticks. I've definitely had worse ones, I think. Start and select buttons, yeah, they don't feel terrible. They're definitely not as good as the original PlayStation controller that it's kind of copying, but yeah, they're kind of cheap, and I think you can get cheap replacements as well on AliExpress. So if they die, you can just buy another one for like, another 1 or 2 for only a few pounds. So you can kind of play them until they break, I think. It depends how much you're going to be playing on this. I'm quite a light gamer because I'm always building like new boxes and changing devices. So to be honest with you, I'm collecting these things. But yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. So yeah, let's take a look and actually tear this thing down, and let's see what the internals look like. Okay, so as we said, this is the XL model. So a lot of the videos I've seen, they've got the X model for this, or the X Pro for the Pro version. But let's see if we can get the screws out. They're quite small screws. It's just, and my screwdriver's not the best, but it was kind of the smallest one I could find. Yeah, so they're coming out, yeah. So I think there's only 3 screws by the looks of it. So let's get these 3 screws out. See what we're dealing with here. Now, I don't know if this actually voids the warranty, because they do put like a kind of sticker over the SD card here to kind of stop you, playing around. So basically, if you break this seal, you're going to void the warranty. But the issue with those memory cards is that they're kind of self-destruct because they're not like proper quality cards really. So, you know, they're not branded cards. So really, you don't really want to have to be stuck with them. And, you know, the chances of you getting a refund, to be honest with you, are probably quite low. So, yeah, I just want to be careful because I don't want to break it because I'm quite keen on having this in my collection. But I'm just trying to make sure that there's nothing sort of holding it. Yeah, I think it's just the screw there holding it. So just do a bit more turning on it. Don't see any reason why it wouldn't give way. Oh, yeah, it's gone. Right. So be careful because this bit will fall out. So yeah, let's have a look in here. And it's saying the SO95ML. So that's interesting because I was expecting to see a much bigger chip. Right, so you've got to be careful because the Wi-Fi is here. And I think I've bent the Wi-Fi doing this, but basically this is the Wi-Fi antenna here. And this is your chip. And it does look quite small. It does look like, I was expecting it to be the S905L, but this is the S905ML, which may be the same thing, who knows. But yeah, so I was expecting to see a bigger chip, but I'm seeing a smaller chip. So anyway, it is what it is. I wanted the iconic design, so that's what I kind of went for. And I'm guessing, let's just have a look at this memory. I just want to see if I can see. Yeah, I don't know how many gig. I'm guessing it's only got 1 gig, and I bet each of those, each of these chips here are probably 512. It looks like they're Kingston chips, so it's not bad. They're using Realtek for the Wi-Fi. This is the Wi-Fi chip here. Just want to be careful that I don't damage the Wi-Fi antenna. But the Wi-Fi antenna is a bit of an old school style of Wi-Fi antenna as well, so it's not kind of modern. You've got like, I guess they've got optical out here, which basically this has been hidden, so you can't see it on the back. But it's been hidden there. There's the plate that's going over it. One of the cool things about this device, though, is that it does have an on and off switch. So a lot of the Android boxes don't have on and off switches as well. So if you make your own custom Android box with Emulec on there, which you can do, you're going to probably not have this, and then you're going to need something on your power supply to kind of cut the power in and out. You can get kind of switches on that. So yeah, one of the cool things is this does come with that, with a power button. You got 2 USB sockets here, so that'll be 2 USB 2, I should imagine. They kind of made them white, which is a bit weird. They're not blue, so I wouldn't think they were 3. They're probably 2. You've got an AV port here, which is probably not going to work. I don't know, maybe. They've got an SP diff written there, but they don't actually have the port. So you've got HDMI, you've got your power support here, your power socket here, so that's all fine. These things are largely just plug and play, so they're pretty cool. But yeah, I was expecting to see a bigger chip. I thought S905L would be a bigger chip, but it's an ML. So whether they're just saying it's an S905L, I don't know. They've got S905L written here. But anyway, you know, let's see how it plays and whether or not that matters too much. I mean, I got this as a kind of like, you must have it in your collection type of thing. So I was really excited to have one anyway. So yeah, let's get this thing. Oh, actually, that's interesting. Yeah, so in the top, right, so they've got like a kind of heat pad here, which transfers the heat. So one of the things about the Super Console X was that people said that it was a little bit bad for dealing with heat. So one thing I'll say is this is a massive, big chunk, heavy chunk of metal actually in here. It's quite heavy. Whether it will do very good at cooling, I'm not sure. But it basically is a big chunk of metal, and then they've got like a kind of thermal pad to connect the CPU cooler, which is this. So your CPU is here, and that's going to transfer the heat to that big pad. Of course, it's kind of passive because there's no air vents as well, so it's not like it can easily escape. There is kind of air vents on the back, so that's going to help a little bit, but it'd be interesting to see if you were to play on this for quite a bit, would you get a lot of overheating and problems like that? I mean, it depends if you're just going to have like a casual gaming with it. But yeah, this is one big heavy piece of metal that makes this sort of feel quite a lot more premium than it probably would if it wasn't for this big chunk of metal. But yeah, it's interesting because when I've watched other reviews, there's definitely differences to what I'm seeing. Yeah, this is not, well, I don't know now because the chip itself does look a bit like it, does look a bit kind of small, similar to other reviews. Whether we can remove the, no, they've really glued that down, I think. So yeah, I don't think we can remove the cooling thing on top of the chip there, and I think that's because they don't really want you to look at the chip. So it'll be interesting to see what it shows up as in the when we play some games. So yeah, let's get this put back together and let's take a look at some games. Right, just before we take a look at the games, I just want to show you, so I'm going to void the warranty by looking at the card in here, because who's to say what kind of card it is anyway. I'm not too worried, I didn't pay loads of money for this, so I'm going to just take this card out and just check it out and see what we get, because it just looks a bit like, yeah, it just looked interesting. It's not a branded card. It kind of looked like a SanDisk from from the side, but it just says extreme speed. Let's get this up. So yeah, I don't know if you can make that out, but it just said that, yeah, it just says extreme speed. I'm guessing that's a bit too close. Maybe if we're going to move it like that. Yeah, so it says extreme speed. 64 gig memory. It's meant to look like a sort of a SanDisk, but it's not a SanDisk. So yeah, so I was just like interested. I didn't mind sort of like taking a look at that. But these cards, the chances are that eventually it might go. Now the problem is if you haven't got a backup of your system, you're not gonna, you've lost this. Basically, this is not going to be any use without this. So you will end up having to learn EmuElec and download everything. So if you're not into kind of messing with these things and learning how they kind of work, the best thing to do is to take a backup of this. So you can do that, on your PC or your Mac. Just get something like Balana Etcher or whatever, and do like a backup of this SD card, and then you can always get yourself another SD card if this goes wrong. And you can restore that back up to your new SD card. You may even want to do that anyway because you might get slightly better performance out of it. Need to be a bit careful as well. The socket's a little bit. Yeah, I think it's gone in okay there. But yeah, sometimes it can like not be aligned correctly, and then you might end up sort of going outside of the enclosure, but mine has gone back in. It all feels like it's in there. But yeah, if you do take your card out, you will void your warranty, but the issue will be that if you do not back up that card, you could end up with it broken anyway, so you'll end up having to try and send it back, and then it might be too late or whatever you. So I wouldn't, I don't know, it's up to you, but the price of this thing, I would take the SD card out and I would back it up, and I'd potentially look at getting a SanDisk equivalent and maybe even, replacing the card from the backup. So yeah, it's good practice as well, so you know that it will work. So I would give that a go. But anyway, let's take a look at how it plays. Thought we'd take a look at what games are on this console and how many of each. You've got like an Amiga, you've got Amstrad, so you've got your older generations like Atari, that sort of thing. It's quite a few games. Only 73 there, 64. So quite a lot for that Atari Lynx. So there's a lot of old consoles on here. Atari ST, I had that as a kid. Quite a few on there. Atomic Wave, a few, that's like arcade. ColecoVision, my gran went and got one of those once. It was quite cool actually, we really enjoyed that. Capcom, you've got Dreamcast on here. There's only one game. I'm guessing if you got the bigger memory stick you might have got a bit more. Quite a few systems on here. So you got Game & Watch, sort of like weird little handhelds, Game Gear, got Game Boy and Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color on here. So a lot of consoles that you recognise from your childhood, I'm sure. Genesis, Mega Drive to people in Europe, but yeah, for our US friends, there is the Genesis hacks, which are kind of custom ROMs. Got Intellivision, MAME, so decent arcade stuff there. Sega Master System, Genesis again, weirdly, not sure why there's two. Mega Drive, so you got a lot of games there, 500 odd. Probably a complete ROM set, or very close, amongst all the different versions there. Nintendo 64, Naomi, just basically arcade. Nintendo DS, Neo Geos, if you like all the Metal Slug stuff, that's there as well. SNES, I think that's the European name of it. You've got Nintendo hacks as well, so hack versions. Quite a big, big choice of games here, really. Yep, not sure about that one. Beats of Rage, so like custom port type things. TurboGrafx and CD. Not many games there, only one. Pokemon mini games and ports. PlayStation port, but only 10 games there. PlayStation 576, so quite a big selection. Expect to have no audio in the games though, so they do tend to remove that. 32X and Sega CD, and the older Sega SG-1000, Super Nintendo. There's quite a lot going on, so a lot of stuff. Vectrex is kind of a weird old CRT, sort of early 3D system. You've got, Wonder Swan. I've never tried any of these sort of smaller unknown consoles to me. Sinclair, I knew someone as a kid, ZX Spectrum, I knew people who had those. So yeah, like 90,000 odd games on there, so quite a lot. Let's go and take a look at the what we're getting for this chip. So we want to know like what kind of chip we've got. Obviously when we opened it up it seemed to be an S905ML, so it's showing 905L, and we're on version 3.9 of MULX, so not a later version. And I think that's because you've only got 1 gig of RAM in this, so not able to support later versions of MULX, which is a shame. So we're stuck on 3.9. Let's play our first game. Let's take a look at the NES. I never had a NES when I was a kid. I never had a SNES either. I was more of a sort of Sega person. I had Sega Mega Drive. But since watching these sort of videos, I've really enjoyed seeing some of the Nintendo stuff. I had an N64, just never had any other Nintendo. Maybe some Nintendos after that, like Wii and Wii U. But yeah, quite a good little game this, quite popular with a lot of people, so the fact that this is on here, and I believe there's quite a few of them, different versions, so this will be quite popular I think with people. And also it's a chance to play games that you haven't played when you were a kid, so you can go and play things that maybe your friends had and you didn't have that console. As you can see, I'm not very good at this one. I'm not really sure. Maybe the buttons are mapped weirdly, I'm not sure because I'm not really a NES person. But yeah, it's cool, it's working, and I'm not working, but anyway. So yeah, so it's a good game. And yeah, let's take a look at some of the other things. So yeah, if you press start and select twice, you can kind of get back out to the menu. So ColecoVision, this is something my grandparents got like from a boot sale or something when we were kids, and me and my cousin Sean loved playing on this, and it was absolutely great. And so yeah, I'm definitely going to be using this console to relive some of those memories and try and find the games that I played when I was younger. So I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, we didn't have it kind of firsthand. It's probably before I was born. But yeah, definitely a cool little console that we used to love playing with. And I believe it's at the same time we had Mega Drives and what have you. So but we still loved playing on this thing at Grand. So yeah, pretty cool. I remember it having Donkey Kong, so I thought I'd give that a go. But yeah, it brings back great memories. I love this game. It was never good graphics, but we loved playing it. These games just kept us going for hours. Really, it's amazing how much time you spend. What with having like kind of unlimited consoles nowadays, you're kind of able to, and again, you're able to kind of play. Sort of so many things now. You kind of get so caught up in how many, but we only really had like this console and maybe a Mega Drive and. Yeah, I don't think we had the sheer amount of games that you've got access to now, so you can just kind of go back and say, right, I'm going to play this, and yeah, amazing, yeah. And it took us quite a while to work out how to get up to that, get up and get the monkey. But yeah, it's pretty good. Really enjoyed this console. Yeah, you got to kind of jump over stuff and hope the balls don't hit you. But it's quite sophisticated. I mean, they go off the end and stuff. They don't just kind of go down the ladders or roll on. It keeps you guessing. It's a good game. And yeah, we really enjoyed playing these as a kid. It's just, yeah, it's sort of weird to see, that it's easy to kind of play these things on just such a little small console. I mean, obviously it's way more powerful than the original console, but yeah, just now, you're getting up to like kind of Dreamcast on this thing, it's just kind of crazy when you think about it. But yeah, like, remember these things being quite big, chunky devices, and then you've got a kind of little tiny console for like £20 that you can basically play most of this stuff. Obviously, Super Console X is not going to struggle with any of these sort of console. I'm not really sure what happened. I don't know why I died. But anyway, I'm dead. Probably ran out of time or something. Yeah, so, you've got these consoles that are kind of like, £20 now. And it'll definitely be able to handle your 8-bits and your older eras, as long as the emulators are set up correctly. But if you're getting into like kind of your sort of Dreamcast, your kind of big, kind of newer consoles like your PSP and that sort of thing, is going to maybe struggle a bit more with those, especially on this system. You might want to look at like a Super Console X4, or try and make your own with a S905 X4 processor in it. This has of course got like kind of an S905 really. I'm guessing most of the S905s are very similar. So yeah, let's take a look at another game, and this is like one of those kind of vertical shooting games that I never even played anything like these, I think, when I was a kid. So yeah, it's cool to see, you watch these videos, you see people play these things and you think, wow, yeah, I could have a go at these things now. Once upon a time you'd have had to have kind of bought these things, whereas now £20 is kind of all there. So yeah, definitely cool. And yeah, and I think if you're mainly interested in playing older retro games, you just need one of these. You don't need, I mean, you can go to like mini PCs or more, like more expensive Super Console X's and Android boxes, but unless you're looking at playing things like PS2 or, even getting into the realms of like PS3, which, you're going to need a much more powerful kind of mini PC or PC for, you don't really need it. You can kind of use these sort of little consoles, and it's what they're great for, really. I see now that there's a Super Console X5, and that's kind of able to play PS2, but they're kind of coming as these big chunky things now, and with like massive hard drives attached in order to be able to fit the games that you need to play. But if you just want to play these sort of games, NES, SNES, Genesis, Mega Drive, you don't need it. Sega CD, 32X, those sort of things. Some arcade games, we'll take a look at a few of those things like the arcade games on here in this video, but you don't need like that much to do these. There will be some bits missing. You know, there will be some games that were harder to emulate, and you know, certainly on N64 we're going to see that some games will be really playable. Think things like Diddy Kong Racing, Mario Kart, you know, all those kind of things are going to play really well. But Cruising USA, you know, GoldenEye, I don't think that's even on here. So I think like there's going to be things that are not available. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool though. As you can see, you know, you can have a lot of fun with these older games if you know how to play them. And I didn't really play them at the time, so. But yeah, great. You know, you can just. I just think this just sits under your TV, or you know, yeah, and you can just go. Well, it'll sit behind your TV or anywhere. It'll just be really discreet. It's only tiny. You don't need anything but it really, and the controller, and you're away. And you're reliving those things, and I think this is the essence of retro games really. The other stuff like PS2 and things like that, they are kind of retro, but you're starting to get into a harder thing to do. So yeah, if you press like both the joystick analog sticks, you can kind of get out into the RetroArch menu, and that will kind of let you close the content. So it's either select and start twice and it'll get you out, or push down on the both analog sticks to get out. Right, so a bit of Game Boy Advanced. The issue with this, I found that I couldn't get it to go full screen. I don't know why it's showing small. I had to play in the emulator settings. I couldn't get it to change screen size. There's probably a way to do it, and there might be some advice out there. There's bound to be a setting that will enable you to do it, but I tried changing the emulator, I tried setting the screen size, but yeah, there probably is a way to do it, but the game's playing fine, you know, Sonic's playing fine, so apart from me not playing fine, but it all works, so, you know, I'm sure there's a way to get this into full screen. I think the reason why it's this size is because on some versions, they kind of, the bezels are kind of like a whole Game Boy Advance console that shows around the screen, and I think there's a bit of confusion here where they've set this up for that, but it's actually just showing normal bezels, so like the two side bezels, and so I think there's a bit of configuration issue. That is the issue you're going to get with some of these consoles. They are cheap, but you know, the curation, and I mean, I haven't seen too bad a game list, but some of the settings aren't going to be perfect. You might have to like kind of get on Reddit or do some searching and find out how to fix certain things, but generally it will just be a setting in a menu. You don't need to like necessarily boot it into Linux and, you know, put a card in Linux and start editing anything. I mean, basically you should be able to change settings on the box to solve, you know, most of the problems. So yeah, I wouldn't panic too much about this sort of thing. I'm sure there's a way to change the settings and get it set up right. So yeah. But anyway, so Sonic works on there, no problem at all. And it all, yeah. So it's not an issue with playing the game. It's just, yeah, it's not set up to go full screen. Right. So let's take a look at Genesis. Mega Drive for us in the UK, and let's see if we've got Streets of Rage on here. Yeah, that's the only thing with these, just scrolling through how many games. I mean, there's just so many games, you know, and everything's set up with like kind of box art and stuff as well, so it's pretty cool. I mean, you know, you're getting so much for £20. I mean, it's just mad, really, isn't it? What you've got, right? Yeah, and if you can kind of fast scroll. So yeah, so once you kind of pull down a bit, yeah, so you can kind of fast scroll this. So yeah, kind of got confused there. Went to Sonic. Right, so yeah, let's give Streets of Rage a go. And yeah, it's all working. And I mean, I'm kind of cutting a bit of the like kind of loading part and the menu, just because there we go. Yeah, so you can get in. So pressing the two controllers, like the two analog sticks, will get you into the menu, and then you can save state and load state. So you can actually save your game footage. Right, let's move on to Sonic. So yeah, you can do, you've got the ability on these. I mean, back in the day, you used to have to play these games right through, and if you died, you kind of had to go back, to the beginning again. So, it's amazing now that you've got kind of consoles where you can, with RetroArch, record your progress. You can even like kind of fast forward games a bit as well if there's kind of a boring bit that, just like kind of skip ahead a bit. Fast forward where it's just kind of waiting for something to happen, and then, you can fast forward the game to that. So it's pretty cool. I mean, there's loads of like advanced features on these little consoles, and you play, and it's quite nice. I don't think we're going to do much upscaling and stuff on this console because this is kind of the base console. There isn't going to be much ability to go faster than what this console can do, so you can't really. There's me trying to break through the rocks. Right, yeah, so now we're on to main. Let's take a look at main. Right, yeah, so 64th Street. Get another game that I have no idea about, and I have only seen on other videos and thought, oh, that looks really cool. I kind of imagined it'd be exactly like Streets of Rage, but to me it didn't feel like it's playing the same at all. So, I mean, I don't think the controls are that different, but what I mean is it didn't feel identical to Streets of Rage. So, yeah, an interesting thing for me there, where I didn't really know. Yeah, let's check out Mortal Kombat. Let's see this load up. Yeah, some of them I've kind of cut to the footage to see the video, to see the gameplay, rather than kind of like you see all me trying to get into the game. And others I've kind of shown you what it's like and how long it takes to load and that kind of stuff. So you try and get a general feel of it, rather than just kind of being highly edited. But yeah, obviously you get quite bored, I suppose, kind of waiting to get to the footage. But yeah, I mean, Mortal Kombat all working as well. And this seems to be a bit of a benchmark for the arcade games. If this is kind of on here, it can play stuff reasonably. And yeah, basically this is on here and it's all working. So yeah, and you get some nice bezels with it. I mean, it is a well-made box. I mean, if you were to go out and make all this stuff yourself, it can be done. Of course it can be done. But for the amount of money you're paying for it, they're setting it all up for you, and it's pretty good. And they're getting all the bezels, they're putting all the games, cleaning up the ROMs. I mean, sometimes the settings aren't perfect on the emulators, but yeah, I mean, it does save you a bit of time just buying this console. And it's a good looking console, because you'll end up with just a generic looking Android box otherwise. Right, let's try a bit of Mario Kart. Yeah, looking good. You always see that kind of first kind of level, so I thought I'd try a different level. Again, running pretty well. I mean, I don't think the resolution's that great on a big TV, but it's certainly fine for reliving your kind of retro experience and having a great time. I mean, I had an N64, I loved it. My favourite game was GoldenEye. That's not on here. I don't think it'll run very well, just because that was a bit of a harder game to emulate on the N64. Kind of Cruising USA as well is on here, but we'll take a look at that in a bit, but I'm not expecting that to run that well either. But yeah, certainly things like Mario Kart, kind of release games, ones that came out with the console, like Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing, those sort of games are going to play quite well, I think. And like I said before, I don't think you need more than that if you're just looking for a bit of retro fun. If you're not like, it needs to play everything, it's got to play, kind of titles all the way up to PS3, you're kind of okay then with this. So Cruising Exotica, this is like part of the same series as Cruising USA. I find it really hard to keep control of these cars, but this one seems to play quite well. There doesn't seem to be any slowdown, the audio seems fine, everything seems okay with this one. So whether that's just a less demanding game, I mean, it's kind of strange being a cruising game, that the USA one was so different, but yeah, Cruising USA, I think it's mainly the audio. That's always the issue. The game might play okay. I did try and turn on the frame counter on this, so the FPS. Couldn't, yeah, I think somehow they're stopping you seeing that. So, yeah, I couldn't get it to, even though I turned it on, it didn't show. So, I think they are kind of like not wanting you to see the FPS. But, you know, again, it felt nice playing it. And Cruising USA, I think the issue here you'll see is that the audio, it's not playing full speed, no one's saying it is, but the audio is a bit, you know, kind of very choppy, and that kind of makes you feel like the game's not playing well. But it is playable. I mean, a lot of people will say this is not playable, and I think if you don't want the audio sounding terrible, yes, it's not playable in that sense. But if you just kind of want to blast through this, you can maybe like turn the radio sound off, you know, take the audio off, and it does play okay. For me, I quite like playing this, and it feels like I'm playing the game. I feel like I'm playing it and thinking, well, this doesn't work, but it does. it's you know, it does play. So another thing on here, DS, quite a few titles of DS. I wasn't able to figure out how to go full screen on the actual main gameplay area, but it's not too bad actually. On a kind of 43-inch TV or like a bigger one, you know, it's gonna kind of look okay having the two screens side by side. I found it fine. I quite liked it. It's kind of useful having that second sort of screen, because obviously the DS was kind of a, you know, two-screen system, one being a touch screen, one being a, you know, kind of non-touch screen, a normal screen. So yeah, I found that fine. I found it worked really well. Let's check out some Naomi. Another arcade system. Again, you know, there's a lot of little arcade systems on here, which of course you never would have had as a kid. You've only been to the arcade and played them, so you know, you're getting these games at home now, so that's pretty cool. I'm kind of skipping through those games a bit. Neo Geo's cool. Oh, this is where I had a problem actually. I couldn't get Neo Geo to run, and so I had to do some tweaks to it. And it wasn't too difficult actually. So, you know, this just shows you that maybe there's something wrong, but you can sort it out. So yeah, if you just go into you can kind of go into the game settings and then per system, and then, you know, and then basically you can select the system, so Neo Geo, and then you can set the emulator that you want to use, and I found FB Neo to work, and when I set that, it kind of all works, so that's good. But yeah, there are little configuration issues with this. It's a bit annoying. I know you only paid £20, but there will be people who will be thinking, well, I have no idea what an emulator is. I don't even know what I'm doing with it. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a pain for some people, but you know, do a search on the internet. You will get help. There will be people who kind of show you what to do. Maybe even Kin Hank themselves will help you out. There's bound to be support. So yeah, I think it's always solvable. So yeah, it was a bit of a blip at the beginning there, but it did work. And when the game all loads, I didn't see any more kind of issues with it. But yeah, great game. And Metal Slug, again, a game that when I was a kid, I don't think I ever came across. I never played it. And then it's only through getting into kind of these things and retro games, and then seeing other people playing retro games, going, oh yeah, we've got this game, and I think it's great. You know, I think it's opened my eyes up to a load of games that I didn't know about, and it's all running pretty well. And yeah, you know, and it's great fun. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, this wasn't an arcade. This was a home console, but you know, obviously this is like kind of an arcade game. But yeah, it's really good, and it works really well. And yeah, I can't see any slowdowns or anything. Again, this sort of stuff you're not going to have a problem with. N64, yeah, when we had the problem with the audio in the Cruising USA, yeah, that's the ones. Here's the consoles that are kind of at the limit of this system. So yeah, this was great. It was great fun. This is a game that, you know, I happily keep playing, you know, even just for the demos, but I'll definitely like keep playing this game myself in my own time, not doing videos. Really like it, and yeah, it's great. So yeah, so let's check out PSP. Another system that again is going to sort of be at the edge of this system's capabilities. So, you know, there'll be a few things on here like this game. Oh, you can also save your state as well. Again, pressing the 2 analog sticks in takes you into this menu, and then you can save your state, and of course load the state back up. You've got 5 slots, so it's pretty cool. And this is using the SSPP and standalone emulator. A lot of things run through RetroArch on here, but that's running through its own standard, like standalone emulator. Now we're on to PlayStation, bloody raw. And again, you know, I was kind of impressed with this. I was looking at it thinking, I don't remember the PlayStation looking as good as this. The only downside is that they removed the kind of soundtrack audio because they want to fit as many games as possible on here. And so they sacrificed the CD quality sound that the PlayStation had, and they kind of take that away, and therefore you end up with a kind of game with sound effects, but not any, you know. Anyway, Sega CD. So yeah, that's the downside of the PlayStation on these boxes. Of course, you can probably work out how to add your own games, and then, but you know, you kind of need a bigger than 64 gig stick, which I got. Here's me badly playing Sonic CD. And yeah, Thomas Wave, another sort of, it's kind of a Dreamcast-based retro system, arcade system. And this is a great game on it, very similar to Metal Slug, a kind of, you know, newer generation one, if you like. And yeah, it's playing pretty well. You know, again, people said this would struggle. I kind of felt like it was playing. Maybe it was the odd blip, but it just felt like it was playing okay to me. I didn't feel like it was struggling. So maybe later versions of Super Console X are slightly better than the ones that have been reviewed a few years ago. Because of course a lot of people reviewed these ages ago. They don't bother buying the latest one. They've done their review video, and away they go. You know, they think it's you know, it's a fait accompli, if you like. They've got their you know, they've got their review of it. But of course, new versions come out all the time. So yeah, really good. You know, Dreamcast is playing okay on this. Crazy Taxi. You know, I think this is a good little console. I'm really glad I got it because I really like the look of it. I know I can probably build a better console that's more powerful. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks very much for watching. Think about subscribing, and I'll see you again in the next one.